Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Ethical Leaders Live. I'm your host, Dana Magnus, here of the marketing brand and the leader here of the Your Ethical Business Community Group. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to just put pause on our show, wait for some people to join, and then I'll get started and introduce ourselves. So just for you all who are watching the replay, if you want to definitely put in the comments that you're watching the replay. We'd love to get your encouragement, your comments, your thoughts, your ideas, and most importantly, your feelings around this amazing ethical story about how our business leaders are taking a stand against things that are yucky and manipulative and wrong and just overall unethical in the world, and how they're using their businesses as a force of good to change and make the world a better place. So each and every week, we welcome a new guest, a new leader here on the Ethical Leaders Live show. And today, we are so excited to bring on Jared Reynolds, a good friend of mine. We're in a networking group together. And also, Jared has shared with me his amazing story and journey through his experience as a lawyer. He has graduated from Chicago Kent College of Law in 2015. And he's since worked with a variety of different experiences. And today he comes to us after his first 6 months of owning a business of his own called the RM Law Group. And he's worked to work with other clients, his clients who are suffering from neglect and just not being treated fairly as a human. So catastrophic injuries are what he helps to defend his clients with. And we're going to today specifically be talking about the nursing home neglect cases and all that goes on in the nursing home industry and just how crazy it is, and just to shed some light on that. So without further ado, I would love to bring on Jared. Welcome, Jared, to the show.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you for having me, and I'm excited that it's up and live again. I know we took a nice break, and I'm excited to get back to it.
Oh, I'm so excited to be back. It feels like a whole nother part of me is just igniting and just so excited to be here. So we've got so many amazing conversations to be had. But let's dive right in with you, Jared. Tell us a little bit about you, about your founding story, and just how heck you became a lawyer out of all the things to be.
Sure. So again, my name's Jared Reynolds. I helped found RM Law Group LLC with my partner, Matthew McElwee. We're sort of a unique firm in that I handle all exclusively personal injury. And I know you mentioned defending injuries. We sort of prosecute. So we prosecute the people that are causing injuries for other people and wrongful deaths. So I handle all types of personal injury cases, wrongful death, medical malpractice, and I do focus a lot of my practice on nursing home abuse cases, but really any type of catastrophic injury that you would think of, like motor vehicle cases, slip and fall cases, really any way things can go wrong.
Yeah.
My partner, he works on the corporate transactional side, helping up startups and entrepreneurs get off the ground and helping them with all of their legal needs, essentially acting as kind of in-house counsel until they get so large that they actually need to hire an attorney. And so I for some reason was always interested in the law. I think inherently when you're watching all the most interesting TV shows and movies as a kid, I was always interested in Law and Order and CSI and all of those other shows that you can kind of binge watch. And at the time, it always seemed like criminal law was the most interesting, and that's really all I ever experienced was the criminal law side of things. So I wanted to go into criminal law. I wanted to be a public defender. Moved to Chicago because I figured it'd be a place where that type of work was relevant and important. And
from where did you move to Chicago from?
I'm from upstate New York, a little south of Albany.
Okay. Yeah.
So I moved here, moved to the big city, wanted to be in law school in a big city. worked with the public defender's office here in Chicago, but once I graduated, unfortunately, they just didn't have the resources to hire attorneys. They need all the help that they can get, but unfortunately don't always have the resources to pay for that help. So I transitioned and realized that litigating and being in court was still a passion of mine, and I was able to transition very easily to personal injury because it was still fighting for the individual like I was as a public defender. And that transition was, I describe it really as the perfect plan B I could ever have had. I always wanted to be a public defender and it just didn't work out. But thankfully now I'm in a position where, I own my own law firm and we're able to still fight for kind of the underdog and fight for people that are at very low moments in their lives or have lost them. And I'm enjoying every day of it.
Oh, I love to hear that. And, I just wanted to make a point for all the leaders watching out there. I know I can definitely relate to the story about, getting out of school and trying to find that perfect job. And for me, it was like rejection after rejection after rejection of the things I really wanted to do. Somehow I kind of went into a way of, getting awesome jobs and opportunities. But it all pushed me to be an entrepreneur because I was sick of being stuck in the things I didn't want to do. And I guess that's, if anyone can relate to that. I mean, I know, Jared, you're going to share with us a little bit about how you kind of went from a job scenario and being employed and now self-employed and with your partner. So that's so exciting. And I think that there's so much here that we're going to be diving into, especially talking about fighting for the individual and why this is so important and why lawyers need to be looking out for people and individuals, especially with these big industries based on efficiency and this efficiency model of doing business. And we're here for Ethical Leaders Live because we believe that people are not, really the focus when it's all about efficiency in businesses. So I know we talked about that, Jared. So take it away. Tell us a little bit about what in the nursing home industry and why do you really defend people? What are you really fighting for and who are you fighting against in these cases?
Sure. When it comes to nursing homes, I always I say it jokingly because it is very unfortunate, but nursing homes are great businesses. I certainly respect their business model from a profit margin. They are very good at making money. Yeah. And it really comes from choosing costs and cutting costs over focusing on quality of care. You can sort of see the trend where many nursing homes across the country have become privatized and have become owned by private companies, private ownership, or even private equity companies. And inherently, when you have those types of business people come in, they're going to do exactly what they're hired to do, which is make money and increase profits. And unfortunately, you can really see the trend where the increase in the privatization of nursing homes has led to a decrease in the quality of care. Of course, this is very broad strokes. There are plenty of great nursing homes and facilities out there. Inherently, a lot of my job is reactive. I can only get involved when things go wrong and when somebody is neglected or suffers an injury or passes away. Wow. I do try to be a bit of a resource to families that are thinking about putting their loved one in a nursing home so that they can know which questions to ask and which statistics to look at because a lot of the good thing about nursing homes is they are heavily regulated. So a lot of the things that are involved in their day-to-day runnings are supposed to be reported and widely accessible to the community. Right. But unfortunately, I always try to say when somebody comes to me asking about a certain nursing home, usually I have very strong opinions about a lot of the nursing homes in the area. And I usually try to say if it's a nursing home that I haven't heard of, it's probably a place to good look into.
Right.
But certainly there's a lot of nursing homes that I file cases over and over and over again against the same nursing homes to the point where it's inherently adversarial, but I can know when I'm walking into a deposition against the same witness that I deposed in another case, you can sort of see the look on their face when they're like, I got to deal with this guy again.
Yeah, and that's such a tragedy because, these are human beings we're talking about. These are people. These are people who are, I have a newborn baby. She just turned 3 months, and, they're at it's like the beginning of life and the end of life are so precious, and you're just reliant so much on the people around you. Like my daughter relies on me for everything, food and diaper changes and a comfortable house to be in, and a cozy bed. And I think the same thing is to be said about these elderly people who are in these nursing homes. Yet there's just such a sweep it under the rug kind of mentality over it. It's disturbing. It's disgusting. And I feel like there's so much just that it's just like these people have given their life to, help others and be there. And then now at the end of their life, they're treated just so poorly. So, tell us a little bit about how, maybe a case, for example, not to get into too many details, but what do you really see? Like when you lift on the veil and you're actually in the weeds of these cases, where would our audience want to really be kind of learning from and perking their ears up a little bit to try to make a stand against what these terrible things you're seeing?
Sure, and you sort of hit the nail on the head, Dana, are inherently when we put our loved ones in the nursing home, they're not of perfect health. They have something where they need help. And unfortunately, a lot of my cases, my clients are Medicare or Medicaid recipients because there is an indication where a subset of the population are more susceptible to abuse. Because if you can spend all the money in the world for the best care in the world, then you're going to be able to access that. Unfortunately, there are a lot of homes that are strictly Medicare or Medicaid recipients that are notoriously understaffed, and that understaffing is directly correlated to the quality of care that the residents are receiving. And so when a resident is put into a nursing home or when a loved one enters a nursing home, there's sort of a 3-step process that is supposed to be ongoing. They're first supposed to be assessed and have their needs assessed as to what exactly is going to be needed to keep them safe and keep them enjoying a quality of life. And so I have a lot of clients that have mobility issues or have mental deficits due to dementia or Alzheimer's. And so those deficits are expected to be assessed and recognized so that the second step is to create a plan to help with those deficits that are recognized in the assessment. And then the third step is actually implementing the plan. And so somebody that has dementia or Alzheimer's, they may not always be reliable to always act in their own best interest. So somebody like that very well may need increased supervision or may need to be in a room that's closer to the nurse's station or have different types of alarms put on their bed or their chair to put the nursing staff on notice when they're trying to get out of bed or do things that might be unsafe for them, because they can't always be relied upon to act in their own best interest. And if somebody's not reliable 100% of the time, you should have to prepare for that 1% where they might not act in their own best interest. And that 3-step process is meant to always be evaluated. Sometimes a certain plan might not be working and you don't just give up because the plan didn't work. You reassess, you make a new plan, and you constantly redevelop that. And in my experience, there's always just some sort of lapse somewhere in that 3-step plan. They either make a great plan, or that 3-step process. They either make a great plan, but they don't implement it, or they just don't properly assess somebody. Maybe somebody has an incredible fall risk and they've fallen, and the family reports that they've had risks of fall, that they fall a bunch at home. And so the nursing staff should be aware that this person may have an increased risk of falling, and we need to put stuff in place to help them deal with that risk. I'd say the main types of cases that I see certainly fall into a couple of different categories. I see a lot of cases relating to people developing bed sores. And I think with bed sores, we talk about it so often, I think, in society that it really is downplayed as to how bad bed sores truly can get. And unless you've seen pictures or experienced it with a loved one, I think a lot of people don't truly know how bad they can get. I've had a lot of clients who develop bed sores that end up getting so deep that you can actually see what would be their tailbone, which would be their coccyx, bone
Oh my gosh.
through the wound. And when a wound gets that deep, you're at huge risk for infection. Sepsis develops, which is an infection of the blood.
Right.
People can get their bones themselves infected, which is osteomyelitis, and then people die of these wounds. And sure, they had other health conditions that prompted them to go into the nursing home, but that doesn't mean that they deserved to die with such a gaping wound in their backside to have that cause their death.
Right.
Bed sores are a huge part of it, and you can see that the nursing homes that are most understaffed have the highest rates of developing bed sore because it's almost the simplest thing imaginable to prevent them. You have to help people offload pressure, and when people can't offload pressure themselves, they need help being turned and repositioned. And the standard is doing that every 2 hours for somebody who is not able to move themselves in bed. You and I sitting here today, we'll get a little uncomfortable in the chair, and so we'll move ourselves around on our own,
readjusting.
Exactly. Somebody is unable to do so themselves, they need nursing staff to do that every 2 hours and have a schedule in place to do so.
Right.
And so it really is one of the simplest. A lot of these types of cases are that much more unfortunate and sad because they all relate to a very preventable thing. And it can go back to the nursing staff being understaffed. And it's not meant to be an attack on nurses in general, because especially nowadays, you hear nursing staff and first line responders and doctors being referred to as heroes, and they should be referred to as heroes because they are taking on incredible responsibilities and jobs. But the unfortunate part is when their employers put them in these impossible situations due to their staffing. And so it's always unfortunate when I have to depose a nurse because I know they hate me and I know they don't enjoy, and there is sort of that adversarial nature where I'm meant to be the enemy and meant to be the bad guy. But I've had a lot of success in becoming kind of friendly with the nurses themselves, because getting them to open up about the actual conditions that they're working in often ends up being very helpful for my case. And so I sort of went off, but I mean, another different types of cases. I do a lot of cases regarding somebody falling. And although it may seem like, well, how can that be a case? Because how can you ever possibly predict when somebody's going to fall? When you're putting your loved one in a nursing home, you're paying them to ensure that they're kept safe. And if they have this risk of falling, it's predictable that they'll likely fall again. And so you need to put mats around the bed. You need to increase your supervision. You need to ensure that you're putting eyes on them on a more regular basis. Other than that, I do a lot of cases regarding malnutrition and dehydration, which is, if you think about it, just an incredibly sad way to die, literally of thirst or literally of starvation, because for some people in nursing homes, it takes a lot of time to ensure that they're fed and ensure that they're getting the liquids they need. I often have times where the staff will say that they're refusing to eat, but then when the family comes and visits, the family goes, they're not refusing to eat. It just takes time. You have to put the spoon up to their mouth, ensure them that that this is for their betterment. And those are the times where I find they try to push giving somebody a feeding tube when they might not need a feeding tube. But it's a lot easier to take care of somebody when you're just hooking up a bag of food, opposed to taking the time and effort to really make sure they're getting what they need. And when you don't have the time and the effort because you have 30 residents yourself to take care of, it's understandable why that's pushed. But really, any way things can go wrong in the nursing home, I've seen a lot of sexual assault cases, unfortunately. There's also cases regarding over medication. Really just any way things can go wrong, unfortunately. And it often comes down to communication. I try to tell my clients and even people that are just curious, especially this past year, it's been very difficult without being able to visit loved ones in person, but you need to sort of just be an annoyance for the staff, because at the end of the day, you need to be your loved one's best advocate.
Right. I was going to say that because there's so much there. There was so much there that you shared with us, and I think that it's really incredible to see each and every piece kind of comes down to this constant need for, like it's not like the nurses don't care, they don't have a heart out for these people. It's that they're probably under conditions themselves which are making it impossible for them to do their job because of, and I'm not saying all nursing homes, but it's just like sometimes we have to pause, and these bigger corporations or privatized industries need to take a pause and put people over the profit. And I think that that's really where this movement of do good and be corporations and businesses out there who are truly designed to because the definition of a business is really to be profitable and make money. However, there's different definitions of profit, and it could be profiting your purpose and making sure that what you're set out to do is being acted upon, which is helping people, and it doesn't need to always be tied to such a paycheck and make that such a priority. So Jared, I guess, go ahead.
In talking about people, I mean, it's the nurses themselves too. I mean, burnout is such a huge issue amongst the nursing industry, and it is because often they are put in these very difficult situations by their employers. And again, I understand the sort of put profits as a business as a priority. I find trouble when this industry itself tries to make itself out as this sort of public service that it's providing. In reality, it's very profit focused, and you see it a lot in the types of reimbursement they're shooting for different patients. You see a lot with pushing hospice because it makes sense, or it makes more money for them being reimbursed when somebody might not necessarily need hospice. There's just a lot of waste where those resources could be put towards hiring more nurses and hiring more staff. You can tell that a lot of nursing homes think of lawsuits and litigation as just a cost of doing business, and that it's easier to just write a settlement check for a potential case than actually hire more nurses and focus on quality care.
Absolutely. Well, Jared, I know when I work with my clients, I specifically, want to know and dig into their mission and what it looks like when their business is doing good and making the world a better place. I mean, for you, you've definitely outlined how you're defending these people, but if you can, wave the magic wand and make all things good, I mean, what would that really look like? I mean, when you're looking at the end of your career and you say, yes, I did it, and I'm here and I'm fulfilled, explain to us a little bit about how you would solve some of these problems and what that would look like.
Sure. And it's of course an interesting dynamic because my career is based off of helping people that are going through significant injuries and catastrophic loss. And so if there was some magic wand that got rid of all of the injuries or all of the car accidents or all of the nursing home abuse, that would be a very interesting time for me as a personal injury attorney. But as a person and just as being moral, certainly that is an aspirable goal, and that's why I try to be a resource often to people that are looking to have loved ones in a nursing home or looking to different resources, because at the end of the day, I don't get paid unless I'm able to be successful for my clients. Right. So it truly is, there's no harm in reaching out to me and just having a consultation or just having me sort of in your back pocket whenever you have questions or concerns. Right. And at the end of the day, although it would limit the cases that I'd be able to move forward, the common moral good of getting nursing homes to care more and focus more on people would be worth it. There's always going to be ways that people get injured and die in society. I always think to that, there was a show that was popular for a while called it was 1,001 Ways to Die or
yeah.
I mean, it was a very extreme focus on just how people die, but it's sort of true. There's a million ways how things can go wrong in society. I mean, nowadays it's very relevant that self-driving cars are becoming a thing. Is there going to be a time where car accidents just aren't as common as they used to be? Yeah. For the general good and for people in general, that's probably for the best. But there will always be other ways where big companies or corporations find ways to kind of cut costs and focus on profits, and who ends up getting hurt in the end is the consumer.
Right.
And so nursing homes are incredibly regulated, but the enforcement of those regulations just aren't always there. And I think the more and more people bring up these issues, the more it kind of will come to light, and people just won't stand for a lot of these issues. I often get calls, and I think a big thing also is society, and as a whole, we're taught that kind of being litigious and filing lawsuits is sort of the worst thing you could ever do in your life.
That's true. That's true. It's like calling 911, like, don't do it unless you have to.
I mean, there's a reason why people call me or call personal injury attorneys ambulance chasers or any other thing. And there's also a reason why when you talk about the McDonald's hot coffee case, people think of it as this greedy old lady that just wanted money. She suffered 3rd-degree burns on her genitals. And it was admitted by the CEO. And it was, if you really dive deep into the McDonald's case, I don't think anybody in their right mind would inflict such pain to themselves for that much money, which ended up even not being as much as people make it out to be.
Right.
The CEO admitted that the coffee was hotter than any other industry standard, that he would never drink the coffee for like an hour afterwards. And it really just goes into that thing that we're all taught, that filing a lawsuit really just ruins your name, and that it's you being, I'll talk with I'll talk with prospective clients, and they'll have a very valid case, and they'll say, well, I'm just really not the type to sue. And I'll hear that all the time.
Wow.
And I don't say this, but in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, then you're the type to be taken advantage of, because the only people that mentality benefits aren't people. They're the corporations that want you to think that that's the worst thing that you can do.
Wow.
Because how do they ever get held accountable? And so I'll get calls from potential nursing home clients calling on behalf of their mom or their dad, and they'll be very angry, usually understandably, about sort of like a lapse of communication with the staff. And I always think there's an example where I got a call, and it was a woman who was very sad that her mom's clothing just kept getting stolen. And understandably, a frustrated family member.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to, unfortunately, file a lawsuit solely for somebody whose clothes are being stolen. But when she's telling me this story, she mentions it in the sense of she was changing her mom because her previous clothes were soiled with blood and feces, and that her gaping bedsore wound was covered and was bleeding through her clothes. But she wasn't calling me for the wound. She was calling me for the clothing, because it isn't taught that these things shouldn't be accepted, that these things are wrong, and that these things are avoidable. We're sort of just taught that, oh, somebody's in a nursing home, they're old, they're sick,
and they're going to have these issues. Yeah.
This
is why we're talking about this. Is so important, because I mean, like, as we bring up like more and more issues and dig deeper, it's bringing light to things that get swept under the rug, and like that don't really get the attention they need, because like you said, it's a normal thing, or it's just standard in our society to just not make a big deal about it, or you don't want to seem like the person who's causing all the ruckus and things like that. But it's like, you can stand up for yourself when you're being taken advantage of, and there's just something not right, because if it's being done to you, it's definitely being done to somebody else. So be the advocate for them too, be the voice.
Exactly. And that's the big thing is, I mean, my clients themselves, but if my clients are a family member on behalf of a resident, they also need to just be an advocate for somebody who can't speak for themselves. You're truly being sort of a voice for the voiceless, and sometimes literally the voiceless. Sometimes my clients aren't able to articulate their own needs. And so those needs need to be sort of predicted, almost like you mentioned with your newborn. I mean, there's times where all she can do is cry because she doesn't know how to articulate what's going on with her. And that unfortunately is very real with nursing home residents as well. I know we're kind of getting towards our time, but I didn't mention some resources that people can look into. I know Medicare has a great nursing home kind of compare website where you can look at the staffing levels of different nursing homes, look at how many complaints they've had in the past.
Wow.
And that's something that I'm always happy to do for people, is to sort of investigate certain homes that they're thinking of. It's very common for somebody to put a loved one in a nursing home that just happens to be the one closest to their home because they think I'll be able to visit more. And that's admirable and good thinking, but it's worth having it going to the nursing home maybe a little bit more down the road if they have this better history of staffing the nursing home and being able to address the needs of their residents. Another resource is, so the Illinois Department of Public Health is a great resource. You can file complaints or file concerns with them either on the phone, or I believe they've even got it down to email, but there's a bunch of different ways to file complaints with the IDPH, the Illinois Department of Public Health, concerned with your loved one's care. And then, talking to an attorney like myself is always a great resource. And I think people get intimidated talking to attorneys a lot. So I try to be very understanding and forthcoming with my clients, in that I'm happy to be whatever my clients need me to be. Sometimes they need hand-holding to kind of get through this process because they've never been through it before. Right. Sometimes they just want me to take care of things and just hear when there's sort of a pertinent update. But either way, I've made very good connections and even friends with a lot of my clients because I try to just be a resource for them and their community.
That's amazing. Well, I put your website here. So everyone, if you're interested in just getting connected with Jared, if you have anyone in your life who is encountering a situation like this with a nursing home, resident who is being abused or taken advantage of, or just simply things aren't right, and you just want to investigate it further, like Jared said with the clothes story, like there's a lot that may be kind of just not discovered yet and not explored. So just a conversation with Jared would be amazing to have. And just also, he's an all-around amazing person, Jared. I love talking with you about just so many things and the bigger vision of the world and how we can all just, kind of challenge these big businesses and organizations, industries to just do better and to really think about people over another. So please reach out to Jared. I put his website here. Ask any questions in the comments below. But Jared, we always love to end each show with a line from you about what you feel like, if you were to share one piece of information or one thought or one idea with people about what you do and about how to be an advocate of somebody else, like how would you put that, and how would you want them to walk away from this conversation just really feeling full around that?
I would say the best way to break it down is to stand up for yourself and stand up for your loved ones. And at the end of the day, especially for some of our loved ones that get older and aren't able to do it themselves, nobody else is going to do it. And so the more and more people, kind of like we discussed, people try to avoid confrontation and may feel uncomfortable with sort of rocking the boat, but it's your loved one, and their life is often in your hands, and being able to just be that voice. And you may feel like you're being annoying at times, but at the end of the day, you should be annoying if that's going to be what gets attention and what gets action for your loved one. So there's never a time, and I always try to say it's better safe than sorry. That's why I always try to be forthcoming and be available for any of my network or resources. My direct line, I always give that out. It's 312-508-3296, and people can call that, text that. I'm very accessible. My email is jr@rmlawfirm.com, and just it's better to be safe than sorry. And so if you feel like things are wrong, or there's just something odd about what's going on, it's very likely that there is something worth looking for. And if there isn't, then great, but it's better to be safe than sorry.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jared. And thank you all for joining us. If you're watching the replay, #replay, share with us in the comments what you think about the conversation today. And until then, I will see you all next week on Ethical Leaders Live. We have another guest coming up. And again, like Jared said, be an advocate. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. Like, it's a good thing to be loud and to fight for justice when you need to. So thank you all so much, and we'll see you next week. Have a good one.
Thank you very much, Dana.